Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Robyn. I'm Robyn Gray, Director of Kamloops Public Library. Today I'm hoping to talk a bit about frozen fruits and vegetables. In these times of COVID, when you're minimizing those trips to the grocery store, one thing to be mindful of is how do you get enough fruits and vegetables, because you can't buy a whole bunch of it if it's going to go bad before you get a chance to eat it all. So in some cases, getting frozen might be preferable to getting fresh. And usually frozen is about as nutritious as getting fresh because it's picked when it's ripe, and then it's frozen, and then it's brought to you, versus items that are fresh are usually picked early, and then so that they'll be ripe by the time they get to you. And it means things like eating blueberries in the middle of winter. So today we are going to be making the Green Monster Smoothie from Oh She Glows, which is a really famous blog, and she has two cookbooks, this one and Oh She Glows Every Day. And I use them a lot. And this is the very first recipe I ever made that kind of got me into making smoothies. I'm not a morning person, so the idea of either making this the night before or having the ingredients ready and just tossing it in the blender before, and then going to work and just sipping on it throughout the morning and getting a lot of nutrition out of it is a really appealing idea to me. So to start off, we're going to add a cup of almond milk. So there's the option of using whatever type of milk you like. One of my COVID tips, I guess, is that almond milk, oat milk, these other types of milk often have a lot longer before they expire versus dairy milk. So I like to buy a little bit of dairy milk for my coffee because I really like the taste of it. But then for things like muffins, smoothies, where I don't notice the taste as much, I tend to buy almond or oat milk. I tend to promote oat milk because it kind of supports farmers in a way, and oats actually take a lot less water to produce than almonds. So it's just a little more environmentally friendly because you're not taking up a ton of water, I guess. But of course, a lot of it depends on your own taste. So the next ingredient is 1 cup of destemmed kale leaves or baby spinach. So I'm not a big fan of wilted spinach, so I don't usually buy kind of the blocks of frozen spinach, although if that's your thing, please go for it. I tend to buy fresh spinach, and then I freeze it kind of loose leaf, and then I can add it to smoothies. I find with spinach, it has a really mild flavor, so you can add a whole bunch of it to your smoothie without it tasting like spinach. Kale is not like that. Kale, it can really take on the flavor, so I recommend sticking with whatever amount of kale is called for in the recipe, because any more than that and you're going to taste it. But yeah, there's also sorts of possibilities for freezing greens, and spinach tends to be my go-to. Another thing is if you do not have a really strong blender, you might not want to use kale because you might end up with chunks, which are not very tasty, versus spinach is usually, it's a lot easier on the blender. Okay, so next, it calls for 1 ripe banana, peeled and frozen. So I tend to peel my bananas before I freeze them and kind of keep them in whole or else half sections. Of course, it's no secret that there's tons of uses for frozen banana bread, banana muffins. One that I've tried before that I really like is banana ice cream, where you have 2 bananas, 1/4 a cup of milk, and some cinnamon and vanilla, and you blend it up, and because of the sweetness of the banana, it's like ice cream, but without a whole bunch of the sugar and other sweeteners added to ice cream. Okay, so next is 2 to 3 ice cubes. And then 1 tablespoon almond butter or peanut butter. I have to admit, I've recently switched from kind of old-fashioned peanut butter, I guess, so salt and sugar and stuff like that, to the natural stuff. And it definitely makes a difference to the taste in the smoothie. When I was using normal peanut butter, it was almost like a candy bar, whereas this is a lot more natural, but it's a lot healthier for you because it has doesn't have the salt and sugar of that other type of peanut butter. This stuff I tend not to prefer on toast, but that's just me. Okay, next is 1 tablespoon pure chia seeds or ground flaxseed. So I actually buy from Bulk Barn, I get a 3 seed mix. So this has hemp seeds, chia seeds, and flax seeds all in it, and I like to add that. All those seeds have a lot of kind of antioxidants and other, well, lots of good things for you. I'm not going to pretend I know anything about nutrition, but it's really good, especially if you don't eat a lot of fish. It's kind of got a lot of those same good ingredients that are good for you. And plus they add kind of a nice texture to the smoothie. So the next is 1/4 a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. So I really like that this smoothie doesn't actually call for like any sugar or sweeteners. If you ever are adding sweeteners to smoothies, first choice, if you have a good blender, is dates. So, because those can add a lot of nutrition as well as the sweet. Next choice for me is usually maple syrup because I like that flavor as opposed to kind of adding straight up sugar. Next is a pinch of cinnamon. I'm going to add a fair bit of cinnamon because I really like cinnamon. And then it says if you want, you can add 1 scoop of protein powder. I won't do that because I don't really have any protein powder. And then the next one, which is optional, is 1/2 cup of blueberries. So blueberries are one of my favorite things in terms of in August, July, whenever blueberries, you know, that there's that time of year at the grocery store when you walk in and like there's a huge bin of it for really cheap. So I love to get a whole bunch of blueberries then and wash them and kind of pack them very loosely in the freezer. And then I have frozen blueberries kind of way into the winter instead of having to buy straight up frozen blueberries. And the blueberries are going to add a bit of a purple color instead of making it totally green. It's not always the prettiest color, but that's okay. I'm going to blend this up now, and that's pretty much all you need for this recipe. So that's nice and easy, and there are tons of smoothie recipes out there. So I really recommend, if you end up enjoying this, experiment with all sorts of different smoothies. You can also kind of double it and put out the different portions for different days of the week, things like that. It's just a really nice way to get some nutrition in there. Some other frozen foods that I really like, one of them is cherries. One of my favorite smoothies to make is kind of a black forest smoothie where it's cocoa powder with cherries, and it tastes really decadent. If you have frozen cherries, just keep in mind that they won't end up tasting the same as they would raw if you want to just eat the cherries on their own. But yeah, and you can have mixed berries if you want. I'm not as big a fan of mixed berries, but they're really good, like added in oatmeal and stuff like that. Another one that I like to buy frozen is broccoli. That's mostly because if I ever eat broccoli, it's in the form of kind of a broccoli cheese soup. Apparently, you can take fresh broccoli, and if there's a few other vegetables too. I'm not quite sure of the entire list, but there are ones out there where you can buy them fresh, and then you can blanch them, where you boil them and then add cold water to heat or to finish the cooking process, stop the cooking process. And then you can freeze them like that and use it whenever. So if you buy way too much raw broccoli, then you have a way to save some of it for later. But so far, I've just bought frozen broccoli, and it's been working pretty well for, like I said, those soups and stuff. Other ones, I like to get peas, edamame beans, green beans, and of course corn, which I mentioned last week. So it's those are all ones where you can kind of leave them in a salad, and then as they thaw, they're fine. Like you don't have to necessarily heat them up or boil them or anything like that. One that I tried recently was avocado. I just got really sick of the fact that you buy avocado and it goes ripe and then it goes bad really quickly. So you have to eat it up within a very short period of time. In the end, I didn't really like frozen avocado when I would spread it on salads or put it in my eggs or anything like that. But it was really good in smoothies because it would add a really creamy texture. So I do recommend trying that if you like to add avocado to smoothies. It can be a really way to add a richness to the smoothie without adding a billion unhealthy calories, I guess. Another one that I tried that was interesting was squash. So basically, I wanted to make a squash soup. So I found a recipe that calls for a squash, 1 cup of vegetable broth, and 2 teaspoons yellow curry powder, and that was it. So very low ingredients, and squash can be a bit of a nuisance to kind of peel and prepare and bake and all the rest of it. So that vegetable substitute, yeah, it depends on what you want the squash for, but that's another possibility. So anyways, that's pretty much all I have to offer this week, but thank you so much for joining me, and yeah, see you next time.